Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. Welcome to our YouTube live stream today. Can you move to Canada without moving? Of course you can, through the Federal Startup Visa Business Program. Is the Canadian Startup Visa Program closing? What policy changes are coming up, if any? Is there risk on this program changing based on the government elections scheduled here in Canada in 2025? Are you from the US or maybe Middle East or Asia or Africa, anywhere else, looking to apply for the Star Visa program in obtaining a permanent residency in Canada? You need to know what the latest SUV PR processing times are. How about the work permit processing times, approval rates for work permits, everything you need to know in less than the time it takes you to buy a plane ticket to come to Canada. No fiction, but just facts. The exposed truth on our YouTube channel, unedited, uncensored, no special effects, just like the rest of our videos, folks. Welcome. Quick introduction, of course, because it would be very rude if I didn't introduce myself and you don't know who I am. My name is Reza, founder and CEO of Ingwe Immigration, your gateway to multiple residencies and citizenships and beyond, no matter which country you plan on moving to, or perhaps not even moving to. We have an active portfolio of over 20 countries and services that opens up a world of residencies and citizenships, and we've helped thousands of families since 2018 from over 55 different countries navigate through the complex landscape of business and investment migration. We cover Europe, Central America, North America, the Caribbean islands, and even New Zealand. Whether you're seeking fast-track residency, looking to invest in real estate abroad, aiming to retire comfortably and enhance your quality of life, finding crypto-friendly tax countries, or perhaps even acquire direct citizenship without moving. Whether it's for yourself, future generations, or your clients, we do offer these solutions. We offer more than just visa services. It's a turnkey, point-to-point, customer-oriented service. Our global partnerships and multilingual team speaking over 10 languages ensure that no matter where you're from or where you're planning to go, you'll have seamless support throughout the entire process. If you want to ask us questions or engage with our office, join us in our upcoming investor trips to Panama and Italy. Make sure you visit our website, our social media channel, or the forms and details just below this video. Let's get into it, folks. You either love it or you hate it, or you don't have any feelings for it yet. What am I talking about? Of course, it's the Federal Startup Visa Program of Canada, which is the only program left in the entire country allowing professionals and investors to obtain permanent residency by applying directly from anywhere in the world, whether you're in Canada, in the US, thousands of kilometers overseas in another country, it does not matter. If you're new to the Startup Visa world, this video is quite advanced or more in depth about the politics, policies, and I recommend you start from the beginning with our beginner videos for Startup Visa, what it is and all that sort of stuff. Let's now dive deep into the Startup Visa world. What's really happening? Does anyone know? Does the Canadian Minister of Immigration even know this program exists and how the IRCC is processing the SUV PR work permit cases? Probably not, since she just received the appointment for this position. Will the Startup Visa program close? Of course not. There are several reasons for this answer. There are over 80 designated organizations under the Startup Visa program. Many of them are actively processing cases to endorse as we are publishing this video and article. These designated organizations, believe it or not, have deep pockets, very entrenched lobby networks to the government and the business world, which is connected to government. And their directors are all key veteran business people and experts in the Canadian ecosystem. If the Canadian government closes this program outright, they are shooting themselves in the foot by creating a large backlash from venture capital, angel investors, and the incubator community. As we all know, the word startup is very fancy and glamorous for politicians, business person, and investors, especially people who talk a lot and don't do anything. The term is thrown around loosely because every country tries to track startups to their economy and boasts about the unicorns that have been created in their country. The US obviously being the most prominent one. Canadian politicians and key stakeholders don't want to send the wrong signal to the world. And internally, it's local system, the local ecosystem for startups, saying that startups are not welcome. So because that's political suicide. So instead of closing it, they just update the policies, the regulations, and the processing capacities and targets, which they have done and will cover next. This is the best strategy, or the next best strategy, to tweak a program without closing it. Another key reason why the SUV program will survive any government change within the country is that A, it was developed and launched during the time the Conservative Party was in power, actually, 2013. And B, most of it was run and managed during the time the Liberals were in power during this last several years. Therefore, you have two of the largest political parties who incepted the program and ran it, whether good or bad, now head-to-head in this year's elections. Is Startup Visa at the top of their political agenda? Of course not. And most people in Canada have no idea what the Startup Visa world is if they're not involved in the immigration world. The last reason that there are literally no business immigration programs to attract investors, talent, or serious professionals to the country. This is the last one. I'm pretty sure the current government couldn't give a damn, since they're trying to get out of a serious political hole they've dug themselves into for the last several years. And the SUV program is probably on page 100 of their top policies to look into in terms of forming a new government or the existing government and making changes. So nobody cares, and it's attracting. It looks good. It's attracting investors, startups. So why even touch it for the time being? And we have to be realistic. Nobody wants the immigration minister job in Canada. Anyways, it's a revolving door and just a stepping stone to where the next candidate wants to end up in their political career ambitions. So can we expect a serious overhaul or change of the Canadian immigration system or business immigration programs out there? Of course not. If the Canadian government is not closing the Startup Visa program, then what is happening? The Canadian Startup Visa program is changing. Those are the facts. This is a fact that started materializing last year with multiple changes that everyone should already know about the Startup Visa program: removing the peer review, capping the number of letters of support by each designated organization, changing closed work permits to open, and updating work permit eligibility criteria under the Startup Visa program. But is it changing again this year? And the answer is most probably yes. We're expecting two major revisions to the Startup Visa program this year. We were expecting one end of last year, but they deferred that. These are just probabilities and likelihoods. But as far as we have heard from the stakeholders in discussion with IRCC, is that these key points are under review that we're covering right now in this short video. Essential and non-essential members on the letter of support. Most designated organizations have communicated to the IRCC that this is a useless factor, which is included in the letter of support and can be affecting their Startup Visa clients and should be scrapped completely. Number two, eligibility criteria of the Startup Visa applicants. Due to the low quality of applicants, many overseas agents sign up into the SUV groups to fill their spots. The RCC is considering increasing the eligibility qualifications for Startup Visa peer applicants. Some of these changes could be language ability. Right now, it's at a Canadian language benchmark of 5, which means CELPIP 5 or IELTS language exam 5554 for being reading, or the French equivalent. Another key eligibility factor which can be added is previous business ownership or senior management paid work experience. Right now, the Startup Visa program has 0 work experience requirements. In theory, you could be fresh out of high school, take your language exam, because nobody's exempt no matter where you live or were born in, and apply for a Startup Visa program if you have an endorsement through a startup. And we believe this is very likely to change. The third point that potentially could be on the change list this year: minimum investment criteria may change for the Startup Visa program. Right now, there are no investment requirements for the Startup Visa program. But if you look at the provincial entrepreneur programs in Canada, they all have minimum investments. And these PNP entrepreneur programs provincial nominee program, entrepreneur streams, are the holy grail for the Canadian Immigration Department. They believe they are the masterpieces of the entrepreneurial and business programs in Canada, although they're all a flop and no serious applicants really enjoy or look forward to these programs. And typically they try to avoid them by applying for this sort of visa program. But the government here takes them as key benchmarking tools against all other business and investment programs or ideas. The reason being is that they're clear and defined eligibility criteria, points-based expression of interest system, minimum net worth, minimum investment, interviews, and clear guidelines for the creation of jobs and economic benefit to Canada through these provincial entrepreneur programs. Yeah, that sounds like a lot. That's what my clients say. I'm proud to say the STAR visa has none of these requirements, which is why it's the single most popular business immigration program in all of Canada. And that's not debatable. If anyone is in the immigration world, they'll know that. However, this could all change. We believe the economic benefit that a startup will bring to Canada will be defined this year by the government. We don't expect a points-based system or net worth minimum threshold to be announced for the START visa program, because that would just be suicide. But either the creation of jobs or, more importantly, minimum investment by the startup business are definitely on the horizons that could be in the next round of revisions and policy changes for this program. The Canadians can just look to their neighbors to the south, the US, over the Atlantic to our symbolic head of states, the UK, or currently being our king, head of state, to see that all their startup immigration programs have clear investment criteria, meaning that anyone who wants to qualify or be admitted or receive permanent status in their country through these programs needs to have either raised capital, specific amounts if they're not bootstrapping, or have accomplished specific revenue or investment milestones to be eligible to convert their temporary status to permanent. The Canadian Startup Visa program is long overdue for such a change, and we're a little bit behind the times in Canada, folks, if you haven't realized yet. Yeah, sorry to tell you. The fourth thing that may change on the horizons is, which is a bit more secretive and it's more internal. This is the internal procedure of designated organizations and how they process and communicate with the IRCC, the Canadian Immigration Department, in order to endorse and sponsor these startup founders and their businesses. It will be an internal procedure change, which is not going to be client-facing, so you may not realize it as an applicant. The details have not been disclosed, but we know that IRCC is cracking down on designated organizations' due diligence and selection process, and how they find, how they select, how they endorse these startup visa applicants and issue letters of support and these commitment certificates. And we believe they're going to beef up this endorsement and due diligence process internally between themselves and the designated organizations to make them more accountable. So this is more of an internal procedures on the back end that you won't probably see, but you may feel, depending on the process of getting the letters of support in the future. This could be months down the line. Will you be affected by these potential changes in the next 3 to 6 months as a potential existing startup visa PR or work permit applicant, or both? Here are the answers to these questions. If you have already received your startup visa letter of support and applied for a permanent residency, the new changes will be unlikely to affect you, as you will be locked into the old regulations. If you're if you're intending to apply for a permanent residency or letter of support, 100% of the new upcoming changes will affect your eligibility, because you still haven't received your letter of support or applied for PR. If you're planning to apply for your work permit post PR submission, because the startup visa program, you submit your PR first, then the work permit, which is optional, which is kind of reverse of all the other programs. Well, if you're in that situation where you're now just applying for your work permit after you've submitted your PR, and if there's any new work permit regulations, yes, it will affect you. If you're planning to renew your startup visa work permit and there are new work permit regulation changes, yes, you will be affected as well, unless it's clearly stipulated, but doubtful that they will not affect all renewals inside Canada. If you've already received your letter of support and have not yet applied for your permanent residency, you could be exposed to new regulation changes, although IRCC will not force the designated organizations who have already issued endorsements to backtrack in case the applicants don't qualify for the new criteria. However, this is yet to be seen and remains a mystery each time the government announces a startup visa program change of who it will affect or doesn't. And they're really bad at communicating and clarifying the details. And it's all, the devil is in the details, and they are horrible of doing that. And usually what we've seen is that by the time they make a policy change in the startup visa program, especially this program, it takes 6 months for anyone to really realize all the little details about it. So it's kind of like a trial and error. Remember, we're always posting about these key details for investor and entrepreneur programs, policy changes, new programs for anyone seeking residencies, passports, and tax relief in 20 countries around the world, and programs. That's what you're interested in. You make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel because it's free. You have submitted your permanent residency under startup visa program or work permit application, and you're waiting for a final decision by the IRCC, Immigration, Refugee, Citizenship Canada. How long can you expect to be under process? Is there light at the end of the SUV tunnel? Yes, there is, but there's bad news on this front and some good news. So it really depends. The bad news first is that SUV PR processing resources across the Canadian Immigration, or also known IRCC network, have been cut. Late 2023 to early 2024, IRCC was load balancing and involving many processing centers across Canada to process the permanent residency backlog for startup visa program. This stopped sometime between end February to April 2024, and everything was thrown back into Sydney, Nova Scotia, the central SUV processing unit, which we sometimes call the Terminators or the Minions in our previous YouTube videos, depending on how novice or senior these IRCC officers were that were processing the permanent residencies in that unit, the SUV unit. Therefore, there's a limited SUV processing team now in Nova Scotia handling the entire backlog, okay, for SUV. Here's the good news. To some, and the bad news to others, is that this limited SUV processing team is picking up and reviewing priority letters of support cases first and issuing them a permanent file number before reviewing any other cases. This is good news for startup visa applicants who have a letter of support or endorsement from a priority designated organization. And very bad news for applicants who don't have that priority letter of support and were endorsed by a non-priority incubator. Keep in mind that all venture capital and angel investors are considered priority by default under the startup visa program, the designated ones on the Canadian website, and only a few business incubators are designated as priority organizations as per the startup visa government website. Previously, if you applied for a startup visa PR application, it could have taken 2 years or more to obtain a PR file number. Today, you can expect this in 3 to 8 months, which is a huge improvement, especially for priority letters of support. Here's another point. We believe that due to the lower IRCC startup visa targets per year for 2025 and 2026 and 2027, the revised immigration targets of the Canadian government, the IRCC officers are intentionally slowing down the processing to meet these new targets. How do we know this? Because there were a lot of cases where they were just passport requests or confirmation of PR, and then it all stopped because they were trying to stagger the numbers for end of 2024, and then now they're planning for 2025. There's hundreds of startup visa groups and clients which have been stuck in the queue since early 2024, late 2023, and even some end of 2022, with no clear communication or progress received on their PR processing by the Canadian Immigration Department. Many of you are in this SUV limbo, and we believe that the priority applications from 2024 will receive their PRs and the decision, at least, on their PRs before the end of this year. Yes, and that's 2025 in case you're watching this in the future. Hello, people in the future. Yes, this is extremely bad news for all the non-priority startups stuck since 2022 to 2023 in the queue or that backlog, but there's nothing you can do or anyone can do at this point. New applications for the startup visa permanent residency are technically in better shape and are being processed faster in the IRCC workflow than the previous applications from the backlog, especially the priority ones. I know this is bad news, but nobody can change this new system that was implemented at the end of, let's say, March, April 2024, with the announcements that IRCC made, the Immigration Department of Canada, regarding the startup visa business program. The estimated PR processing time for non-priority endorsed startup group is over 40 months. That's a lifetime, folks. For priority, the data is not published, but we're seeing 24 to 30 months. And as you should all know by now, if you are a startup veteran, that the worst enemy of a startup is time. More times means higher likelihood of failure in the startup business world, because your cash can run out, the competition may come in, more competition may come in, your technology may be outdated or obsolete. A million of these things. And I'm not an expert, but if you are, you know what I'm talking about. Work permit processing times are averaging 4 to 4.5 months, no matter where you're applying from. Of course, in certain visa-exempt Western countries such as the European Union, Japan, Taiwan, South Korea, and so forth, the SUV work permit processing is fast. But the rest of the world, including the US, you're looking at 4 to 4.5 months average. So it could be some people get it at 2.5 months, some people get it at 6 months, folks. That's what average means for all work permit SUV applicants. What is the approval rate for the startup visa programs work permits? We're seeing significantly high refusal rates across the board for non-visa exempt country applicants for the SUV program, the startup visa program. This is because the IRCC announced the open work permit option last October, and this has caused an influx of new SUV work permit applicants. And at the same time, internal IRCC instructions, which have not been revealed yet, are training their officers to refuse most SUV work permit applicants on the basis that you have not demonstrated, quote unquote, you fall within the exceptions of the regulations 205A, and that the proposed work in Canada for your startup would create or maintain significant social, cultural, or economic benefits or opportunities for Canadian citizens or permanent residents. Basically, this means, as per the regulations in the Immigration Refugee Protection Regulations 205A, that you're not showing or bringing any benefit to Canada, and there's no compelling reason to let you in on a work permit before your PR decision. This is the easiest trick in the book being used by the Canadian immigration departments and the embassies overseas for startup visa work permit refusals. It's the catch-all of all refusals. Literally 99% of all startup work permit refusals are based on this specific reason. Sometimes the officer is really tired and or lazy and will just mention that there's no valid LMI for this application, which is just another way of stating that you are not LMI exempt under the regulations 205A, which we just covered, meaning no significant benefit. So you need a labor market impact assessment. And folks, don't try those, because that's a death wish. The reason the IRCC is using this refusal reasoning is that they know, and we know, the reality of the startup visa world, which is that many of these startups either A, do not have the funds to invest and create jobs in Canada or economic, social, or cultural benefits, and or B, have no intention of doing anything besides looking for a job inside Canada with their new open work permits under the SUV program. We can't blame them, meaning the IRCC, the Canadian Immigration. But also it begs the question, why did they even announce an open work permit policy, and why did they implement this rule 2 years after the Minister of Immigration announced it at the Collision Conference in June of 2023? And yes, I was in front row of that audience when they made that announcement 2 years later. These are mysteries that will haunt humanity for the next 1,000 years, similar to the JFK assassinations, no less. Is there a way to overcome these refusals for the work permit? Yes, it's simple. Hire Canadians inside Canada, preferably remote from rural parts of Canada, as it's more impactful considering the current unemployment rates. Run payroll and mention that this in your work permit application, that Canadians are at risk of losing their job, which falls in line with the maintaining benefit for Canadians within the regulations 205A, which they usually use to refuse you. Voila! You have a strong SUV work permit case and a potential strong judicial review case, maybe not, for federal court. I hope this information today regarding the Canadian Star Visa program has provided you more insight regarding this direct PR business program to Canada and allowed you to make an informed decision on whether to apply for this program, what to do next, or at least plan your next move against the IRCC, the Canadian Immigration Department. It's a game of SUV or startup visa chess, folks. Have you studied your opponent before you started playing? Well, we have, because my team and I have been doing this for over 8 years. We know the opponent well because we've been doing this chess match all along, and we can make the odds in your favor for your startup visa PR application. If you like immigration hacks, creative immigration solutions, or uncensored, raw analysis and editorials on the exposed truth about immigration policies and updates around the world, you can click the subscribe button for our YouTube channel, where most of our videos on the latest residencies, citizenships, and fast track programs and passports around the world. And why should you subscribe? Because it's free. Don't forget, we have our upcoming investor exploratory trip to Panama and Italy in April and May of 2025. If you're looking to apply for your residency to any of these countries, which takes weeks, not years, we're hosting a trip to both these destinations where you can see everything up front before you decide to apply. Reach out to our office, to our website, our contact form, the details and links below this video, and mention the name of the country you want to join our trip for. Everyone is welcome from around the world. No restrictions. Thank you for tuning in to our YouTube live session. We're going to jump in to the questions and comments on our YouTube audience because it's a live stream. If you see the potential for yourself, your family, or your clients securing a second, third, fourth citizenship or residency, make sure you stay connected with us with the latest updates and opportunities. At Ingwe, we're dedicated to crafting solutions that meet your specific immigration needs with clear, upfront processes and payment milestones for peace of mind. We have a variety of programs that match your goals, and we customize solutions. We're a solution provider, a cross-border solution provider. This is not cookie-cutter stuff. We've helped clients from over 55 countries. Our team speaks over 10 languages. Are you ready for the next step? Click the link below this video to connect with us or book a one-on-one consultation with me in case you're interested in one of our offered programs. Yes, folks, we are going to jump into your questions. Okiemute Akpovoka. Hello, please kindly advise. I applied for a visitor visa for my 10-year-old daughter to visit me in Canada and during my graduation, but refused. Should I apply for a study visa or reapply? I would say study permit, and keep in mind that they are not accompanying minor. Therefore, you need a letter of acceptance. Okay, if you're doing a study permit and you have a valid work permit or study permit yourself. Refuse due to non-significant ties to home country. Yeah, that's my suggestion. And it can still lead to refusal, but you got to fight back, not constantly, non-stop. Safa Salah, hi Rez, it's been a while since the last time. Miss you, bro. Hey Safa, how are you? Yeah, it's been a while since we did the sort of visa. But yeah, it's great to see you. Thanks for joining our YouTube live today. Okiemute Akpovoka, how can you prove ties to a home country for a 10-year-old as her mother died while I was studying in Canada and she lives with close relatives back home? Okiemute, sometimes they just refuse on bulk basis using AI or just bulk highlighting their spreadsheets and refusing. So you just got to reapply and address the concerns, apply for a study permit, put those things in context. And I think family reunification is also important, the fact that the mother has died as well. So you have a strong case, and I think you have a good chance of eventually getting that study permit. Visitor visa, I'm not too certain about. Safa Saleh, since we've received the pre-arrival service letter 8 months ago, we haven't heard back from RCC, but they asked us for updates of the expired passports or renewal medical tests, but no decision. What's up? They're just staggering all the cases because they have to now match the new targets that they've announced for startup visa and these federal programs. So meaning they have this huge backlog and they have these minimum targets. So now they've got to slow it down. Rosita says, bonjour, Reza June. Bonjour back to you, Rosita. Safa Saleh says, RCC said that they're checking the background, but no time scale for that. What do you think? There is no timeline for security check, Safa. If you have investors or co-founders in your startup who could be from countries where the security check takes longer, it could be China, Iran, or other countries, then it is very difficult, especially countries where Canada may have issues in communication or maybe no formal political ties. Samin Alim says, we have submitted a PR application in December, still waiting for the acknowledgement of receipt. Can you guide us? We're eligible. It takes 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months to get a PR file number, especially if your non-priority designated organization endorsed you. Okay, so you're still within the timeline. So in the next 2-3 months, potentially you'll get it. If our incubator is non-priority, but we have a lot of support and our application for PR is submitted, what will be the result? Well, we don't know the result. Nobody can predict the result, Samina. It's in terms of the timeline, you're in for a long haul, 3.5 years or longer. In terms of the decision, it depends on your startup, the traction, the business, the investment, the qualifications of your founders, the innovation, the eligibility of the co-founders, and the admissibility, including dependent family members. There's a lot to consider. So that's a very loaded question. Safa says, as per my information, there's no PR approval for SUV application for months. Any news from your clients as per your information? There's a lot of them are stuck. You're right. There has been a few trickles, very few in the last 6 months, rare. But most 90% of SUV are stuck, but we believe that during the second half of this year and this summer, things will pick up. So all these applications with priority from last year will get a decision, and many of the ones that were staggered will get a decision. So this year is going to be the year where if you were like literally inches away from that confirmation of PR passport request, it's going to happen this year. Okay. What about GCC countries? Apply for startup visa. So, Samina, for the permanent residency startup visa program, it does not matter where you're applying from for the permanent residency program. Meaning if you apply from US, Australia, GCC, Japan, China, Korea, Nigeria, it really doesn't matter. It's the same processing. Permanent residency programs in Canada, all of them, family, skilled worker, whatever it is, asylum, it doesn't matter where you're applying from. It doesn't matter what your nationality is. It's all one processing system workflow, okay? Work permits, temporary residency, study permits, visitor visas depend on where you're applying from, which could dictate where you're from originally through the embassies, overseas consulates and embassies, but not the permanent residencies, okay? Folks, it was great seeing everyone today, especially some of the audience members we haven't seen for a while, like Safa and Rosita. Thanks for joining in, Samina. I think that was your first time you joined our live stream. And of course, Okiemute, but I think Okiome, maybe you've joined our lives before. Every week, so next week we're in Panama. We've invited investors and partners to come and join us for the Golden Visa. If you're fed up with the Canadian immigration system like we are, just pick one of these other great countries that we do, like Italy, Panama, New Zealand. There's a lot of them. And we have that going on. So next week, unfortunately, I won't have the YouTube live because I'll be hosting an event in Panama, which is very friendly nation, open to all nationalities, and you can get your residency within 6 to 8 weeks, which is a joke. No education, no work experience, no language, no IRCC. Thank God for that. Anyways, Samina says, thank you. Vilas Desai. Hello. Is it true that RCC has laid off 3,000 jobs? Yes, RCC has laid off people, folks, because their targets have reduced. Why would they need all those people now? They have AI. They have less applications they want to process, not less applications in the backlog, less applications they want to process because to meet those new targets they announced and they revise. Of course, there's less people processing. And like I mentioned, Vilas, I don't know if you joined us late, but in late 2023 to early 2024, they were load balancing and fast tracking PR processing and SUV by using many offices and resources. They stopped all that sometime between end of February to April 2024. So there's only one team in Sydney, Nova Scotia. They're going one by one. I don't think there's a lot of them around. I'll probably know them by name in the next 1 year. Yes, it's slow. Safa Saleh says, thanks, Reza. You gave us some hope because we started to give up. I know that's what the system is built. The machine. Okay, there's no analogy to the movie The Matrix here, folks. The machine, which we call the IRCC, wants you to lose hope. It's got you stuck in the SUV system, that tunnel, and it wants you to give up. It wants you to let go. It wants you to go home. But the machine is doing that. But you have to fight back against the machine. Okay, Vilas, Safa, whoever, wherever you are. If you're there, you stick to the end, and make sure your co-founders do too in your startup group. Because if they're essential and they withdraw, whoa, you are in trouble. Okay, so fight against the machine, folks. The IRCC machine is slowed down, and it wants to make it slow, gruesome, and painful. But you know better than that. Samina says, I need to contact you. I mean, Samina, you can book a consultation if you like. You've already submitted your PR. There's nothing else I can do for you, to be honest with you. The processing time is the processing time. You have your letter of support from a non-priority incubator, which I have a guess of the top 3 that you have it from. I can't say it because they'll send me cease and desist letters like they did last time on our YouTube channel when we called them out, but that's okay. Vilas Tessa, thanks, Reza. I will write to you something interesting. I love interesting. Anything interesting, folks, or SUV gossip or interesting weird cases, let me know. Send a message. Love to talk. Gunit Kaur, hello. We are going on 5 stage of our business on a 5 in application filed in February 2023. How long can we hear good news? We are going on TRL 5 stage of our business in application filed in February. Okay, so Gunit, if you applied for your PR application in February 2023 and it's a non-priority, you know, it could take end of this year or next year. It really depends. It's very random. We cannot assume or guess. But generally, towards the end of this year, even if you don't get a PR, we'll see some traction in the communication. The resources of IRCC for Star Visa are limited. They're low. They're overflowing with applications and backlogs. It's tough. Infinitely slow. Yeah, Vilas Desai says infinitely slow. Folks, we've talked about the Startup Visa program today, the Canadian direct PR application, and we've had comments and questions and a great audience today. And of course, we're back every week for our lives, okay? And we're covering all kinds of residency programs, fast residencies in weeks, or fast passports in months, and the slower ones like the Canadian ones, the American ones, and who knows what's happening in America, the New Zealand ones, and all the great programs in between. Next week, I will be in Panama, so I won't be able to host a live stream, but the week after, I'll be back. But we're posting more videos on Startup this week, and then next week, it's going to be New Zealand. Ooh, I like it because they've changing their program in April. Perfect timing. And then after that, we're covering Panama. Wow, the golden visa that's open to any nationality in the world. And we're talking about weeks, sunny, banking system is amazing, good cost of living, and it has E2 status with the US. What can go wrong? And it's tax-free for your overseas income. Wow. And it's crypto friendly. Why would you not? It's a no-brainer. Thank you for joining us, everyone. And remember, don't apply for the sake of applying. Apply with a plan. And that's the key. Otherwise, you'll be stuck. Folks, take care. Have a good one. Happy spring.